So today we're going to be talking about the differences between Category 6 and Category 5e and why it would be important to be considering Category 6 if you're designing a new structured cabling plant. So first of all, a quick little history. So if we go back to the beginning of Ethernet when it was first supported on twisted pair wiring, this is the late 80s, early 90s, it was supported on what was called Category 3 wiring, and that was supported about 10 megabits worth of bandwidth. And then we came out with Category 5 wiring, and that supported 100 megabits of bandwidth and also supported some power. And then Category 5 Enhanced or Category 5e came out, and then that supported a gig of bandwidth as well as power over Ethernet. And then finally we came out with Category 6 and then 6a, which supports 10 gigabits of bandwidth as well as even more power over those wires. The main differences in the physical aspects is the number of twists per inch on each pair of the cable. So there's that part of it, and then it's the amount of tolerance that there is for the termination of the cable itself. So between the number of twists per inch and then how tight those tolerances are, that determines how much capacity that the cable itself can have. So when you're thinking about Category 6 wiring and if you should go to Category 6 versus installing more legacy Category 5e, one of the things that you want to be looking at is just from a bandwidth perspective. And so from a bandwidth perspective, as I was mentioning, it supports 10 gig capacity. However, as we've been looking at our user base and looking at our clients and how they've been using 10 gig with their users, we're not finding a need for 10 gig at the desktop as being a major driving factor. In fact, what we're seeing is that most of our clients access applications or data that's not even located physically close by or close on the network. It's out on the cloud somewhere or out at a remote data center, and they're accessing it through some other kind of connection. And that connection, whether it's the internet or a private connection to that data center, that connection becomes the main bottleneck. And then on top of that, a lot of our users are now mobile. And so if our users are mobile, then we're automatically not even using 10 gig from a wired perspective anyway. So that doesn't tend to be a major driving factor in the design decision for implementing Category 6 cabling. But from a long-term perspective, if you're looking at it from a 25-year basis, still worth thinking about because you want to get a long-term return on your investment based on what you're doing. But the second item, which I think is more important, has to do with power over Ethernet. So when you go to Category 6 cabling, the power capabilities of that cable are much greater. In fact, our networking manufacturers now are releasing and producing switches that are capable of delivering 90 watts per port on an Ethernet cable, but it does require Category 6 wiring to support that. And so they know that the devices that are coming out and the devices that we'll be using in the future will be driving higher power requirements. And so, from that, if we know that that's possible out in the future, then we want to be designing our cabling infrastructure to be able to support that. Otherwise, we won't have what we need to be able to do it when the time comes. Now, what you want to be thinking about are things like this: more video displays, digital signage. LED lighting now, products are made to support power over Ethernet, so we don't even need electrical cables anymore. It can just be powered straight from a switch. Our ability to be able to power up our mobile devices or our laptops and those kind of things off an Ethernet cable is possible. So there's all kinds of different things that are coming out in the future that will require more power, and if you don't have the cabling infrastructure to support it, you won't be able to do it. So those are the kind of things that you want to be thinking about as you're designing a new structured cabling plant. So do you need more bandwidth down the road, or what kind of power requirements will you have?